an exciting comeback, but it's always exciting to watch. This guy's always quite exciting to watch as well, to be honest with you. This is a good mate of mine, actually, Mark Redford, in the number 77 car. His son, Will Redford, is racing in the Civic Cup this year here in the UK, and he used to race in the Junior Saloon Car Championship, where I commentated on him, and it was absolutely wonderful to see. And Mark has been racing in a number of leagues that I've covered, and he's very, very quick on the ovals. He absolutely loves his oval racing. It's good to see him back out there. Fourth at the moment, though. It's the boss man, actually, Harry Wills in the 95 that's currently fastest in qualifying. 2/10 faster than Metzger. I mean, 2/10 in these sorts of cars, David, that's actually quite the gap, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and the fact is that you'll be very hard pushed to actually bring that down, Chaz. 2/10 of a second, would you usually see about 4 or 5 cars in that sort of a gap? You look further down, I mean, look at Metzger, Howe, Redford and your Exoy. They're all within that sort of 1/10 of a second. You've got Timms and Silliman in there as well, so I mean, for Harry Wills to pull that out, he's obviously had the earlier bit of practice from tonight, from the EU session, and that's coming in very, very well. What I will say from what I saw earlier on tonight, the tyres are going to be absolutely goosed very, very quickly. You're going to see quite a few cars power sliding through some of the corners here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a real momentum circuit as well. And I mean, you and I both know from our time in certain simulators all over the place that cars like this, they really are on a knife edge. You know, you're dancing them around all the time just because it's not your sort of typical oval where you're going down a straight and then sort of thinking about the corner at the end of it where you have to maybe even brake or lift off a lot. You know, around here, a lot of the time you can be pretty much flat, but it's just that little adjustment here and there that's going to maybe make the car break away. So it's going to be exciting to see how the drivers, again, we mentioned this development of not just the circuit, not just the tyres, but the drivers as well. You know, you get more and more tired as these races go on. We've got 75 laps here tonight, and it is certainly not a short race by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be quite a high average speed as well. When I was doing a little bit of research ahead of tonight, I was looking at the race lap record around here, and it was an average speed, yes, average, of 245 miles an hour in a kart machine in 2000. That would scare the life out of most people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but then that was in the early 2000s where karts were getting like really, really scary. There was that I'm trying to think of that weekend where the kart racers were basically starting to black out. They were going around the track so fast, and this sort of track would lend that sort of nature to it because it's unbelievable, so tight as well at some of the corners here. The other thing I was going to mention was some of the lines that were being taken tonight were very unusual. Normally with NASCAR we see them sticking to the inside and keeping to the inside line, but quite a few of the drivers actually going up high, sticking to that outside line and being able to drive the traction out of the corners and get some good power coming out of there. So Wills, I think, will be going back to that. Redford, I think, as well, and possibly Kalaga down in 9th position. But it looks like that is going to be us done and dusted for qualifying, Jazz.
Yes, indeed, and it falls quiet upon the circuit for just a moment as we wait for the session to tick over. But yeah, it's intriguing because in iRacing you do get a slight degree of side draft. They have actually modelled that into the sim, which is really cool to have. So a lot of these drivers will use that tiny little bit of it that they can get by running all the way around the outside. And you're very right. We normally see them right up against the wall when they're going down the straight or the back straight. And then as soon as you go through maybe the tri-oval or one of the main corners, then of course they will hug the inside line. There is your grid though. Harry Wills and Casey Metzger side by side on the front row. Emily Howe and Mark Redford make up row 2 with Errol Urixoy in 5th ahead of Dean Timms in 6th position. Castelliman is 7th ahead of Braden Melling, the Canadian driver. Eric Kulaga and Justin Delano make up your top 10. Lilac Zia is in 11th place ahead of Drew Neubauer. And then we have Stephen Martinez and TJ Handley. John Casey, another driver that I've commentated on before, is in 15th place with Rich Matthews alongside him. And the back row of the grid is going to be Matthew Plaisance and hopefully Henry Wyndham, but he's not taken to the circuit yet. We're just waiting for... Dean Timms has just popped up as well. It looks like we might just be waiting for Henry. But Harry Wills, right up there in the championship, of course. He's going to be the man hoping to take this, because the fight right now is definitely with Lilac Zia, and Lilac down in 11th place, current championship leader, not in a position to defend her lead.
What I would say about Lilac though is that from watching her in the previous races, and obviously it's been quite good doing the production, because you're having to watch all of the races anyway. But Lilac, I've noticed, starts mid pack, towards the back, usually gets caught up in the first caution of the day, and then for some reason manages to tear through the entire field and get themselves up into the top of the field for the rest of the race. Now, not too many race wins, but it's keeping yourself in the top 3. That's what counts for the championship points.
Yeah, that was actually something I was going to touch on tonight, is that, I mean, over here in the UK, obviously, we have the British Touring Car Championship for some of our very highest levels of entertainment. And some of the results there can be really random. You know, you may get the few drivers that win more races than others over the course of a season and are always in the top 10. And it's similar in NASCAR. You know, you could put all the drivers' names on a hat, or on a hat. You could put all the drivers' names in a hat rather than on top of it. Throw them all up in the air, and then whatever order they hit the ground in is the race result. You know, it can be so mixed up sometimes. But back when I started watching NASCAR in 2014, I saw all the cars and I thought, you know what, I'm going to choose a driver to just be a fan of. You know, I'm going to see which one I like, which name I like the most. I chose Kevin Harvick, and it's apparently quite a controversial choice, but he won the first...
You're living on the edge there, Chaz.
He won the first race that I watched, which I thought was some weird miracle, because then I realised afterwards how random it can be, you know, who wins what. And then he went on to win the championship in 2014, you know. I mean, I say I started watching in 2015. I watched the whole 2014 season back, not knowing who was going to win it. And then I picked Harvick to be my favourite driver, and I loved the designs of the cars and so on that he had. And, yeah, he ended up winning that season. So, yeah, it was quite a good pick, it seems. But right now, we have Harry Wills. He's certainly the pick of the moment, alongside Casey Metzger in the 82 machine. And we have the 83 of Emily Howe on the inside line, just ahead of Mark Redford. Now, the biased side of me would say keep your eye on Mark Redford, but I'm not sure right now, because I've not seen a lot of these guys on an oval before, so it's going to be exciting for me to get used to this. The iRacing sedan, that's definitely not an Audi, pulls into the pit lane. Harry Wills will control the field, gets his foot down, and we're away at Auto Club Speedway. Looks like a great start by Errol Uriksoy as well. He went through the middle there of Redford and Howe, and he's actually made it up to the outside line. That could be important early on. It's a tidy start by Harry Wills. Harry Windham has taken to the start of the race. He's just coming out of the pit lane now. Redford going high. Down the inside, it looked like Cass Silliman trying to make the move as well and gain the place. 2 by 2 for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. It is Silliman there in the 25 car down the inside. Just trying to keep the car high up. Now, they won't go completely down to the apron over the course of this race, David. Early on, we get a sort of... There's that second lane and third lane that tend to be the most used for some of these drivers. But, I mean, look how fanned out they are already.
Yeah, it's a great start for a lot of the cars. I'm seeing a little bit of what looks like bump drafting there from Emily Howe and Metzger. The problem is that as soon as you start doing that, you start putting extra pressure, extra heat, extra wear onto those tires at such an early stage. I mean, you really have to look after them. You go down to that inside line and you really start building up the temperature, and I wonder if that's why we saw some of the cars staying up, like we see here with our second place driver of Emily Howe, sticking up to that outside line, keeping the tires nice and cool, but still maintaining all that.
Whoa! Sorry, mate. Around goes Cass Silliman. Apparently, he's gone in the pit lane because he's gone that far off. Sorry, buddy. Absolutely launched it into the pit lane. I think he's hit the end of the wall as well. But because he's ended up in the pit lane, it's not brought the caution out. That's a nightmare scenario for Cass, but I suppose he's already in the pits to get it fixed rather than dragging it around for an extra lap.
Yeah, that's awkward to say, and poor Cass, she'll be absolutely devastated by that one. But yeah, I'm sure Cass will get herself back out. The problem is that we've seen this for a number of the drivers here, Chaz, is that this is kind of what happens every week. They get caught up in that early incident, and suddenly they've got all the work to do. But it looks like actually retired from the race is Cass Ilma at such an early stage. Henry Wyndham comes back out though, but yeah, that's a difficult.
Oh, it's a real shame, real shame. But that's just one of those things. Unfortunately, in motorsport, sometimes it doesn't always go that way. Right now, Harry Wills leading this race. Emily Howe in second position, chasing on. And again, different lines into that last corner. And then it's quite interesting, actually, because some of them, they start down low and then end up high and then back down low again. And then some of them, they go really early, really high really early into the corner, and then sort of use the downward slingshot out of there to try and get a run into the tri-oval. But Emily Howe certainly looking like the main driver here to put pressure on at the moment. And Harry Wills seemingly under attack right now.
I just noticed there in Chaz, Taylor Lane giving us a wee bit of a shout out there. Two good friends of his on comms. How spoiled are we tonight? What I just realised is that I'm going to be seeing Taylor this weekend. He's down at Milton Keynes for the race spot thing. So Chaz, if you've got a spare 20 quid, I'll happily accept donations to take him out in the race.
20, I'll give you 50.
Good stuff.
It'll be great though to. There's a number of friends of mine actually taking part in that event. I'm so gutted. I mean, we were talking about it just before we came on air. I'm so gutted I cannot get down to that, because it would be absolutely wonderful to be a part of it. But unfortunately, I'm in Norwich that weekend with British Endurance Championship at Snetterton. But still, it's going to be a fantastic weekend for you all, and I really look forward to seeing what comes out of it. Whoa, what came out of it then was Emily Howe very sideways through the final corner. It certainly looked like the back end of that car stepped out. Now, I've heard a lot about these machines having a sort of, this is going to sound strange at first, so bear with me, an open-wheeled-like behaviour about them, in the way that they feel planted as hell for 90% of the time, but when they break away, oh boy, do they break away. Because of all of this extra downforce, you know, they're not as sort of slippery on top of the road like they were in the previous generations of these cars. You know, they've got more aggressive splitters and side skirts and diffusers, doing all of the aerodynamic work. Right now, they just look glued to the road. It's almost like scale electric for quite a bit. And then, like I say, much like a scale electric car, actually, they can just break out of that slot, can't they, and just go flying off the road.
They absolutely can. It's the case of they've got buckets and buckets of grip right up until the moment when they don't. And we saw that in the EU one earlier on tonight. So many drivers towards the final 10 laps of the race, their tyres are done, and you're seeing them really struggling, because then suddenly damage creeps in, and it's just like this really negative spiral which just gets worse and worse. What I'm going to say though is, it looks for me like Emily Howe and Mark Redford, they're quite happy to sit in the toe of Harry Wills right now. They've got the pace to get past, but they're not doing it.
This is the thing. I reckon right now that we're going to see a lot of the bigger picture being played about with here, and Emily Howe and Mark Redford certainly staying within touching distance of Harry Wills, but just Emily's not really making any, no obvious advances anyway to try and make a move and get through. Like you say, I reckon Emily is just happy to just sit in that position right now and not cause any unnecessary stress to herself or Harry. But look, not even bump drafting at this point, just getting close to the back of that car. And again, Harry maybe a little bit of a twitch there, but not too much. Didn't look too stressful from where we are. We go on to lap 10 out of 75. And right now, it is very close between the top two, but still, a lot can change in these races. You and I both know it, David. It can happen very quickly as well. As we look a bit further back here at the number 3 machine of TJ Handley. TJ running a very hot pink car. There's not many other ways to describe it, really. I was thinking of the best way to sort of come about this, but yeah, it's a very striking livery indeed. Down the inside of the number 19 car. That's the Eclipse Racing Esports solar machine of Braden Mayling. And Braden now back down the inside again. That's like the most progressive and slow cutback you will ever see. You know, it's not what we'd see on a road course where a car dives in on the brakes and then suddenly the other one pops out from behind it. That was a really progressive and a very predictable cutback, but that's the sort of thing you have to have in these kinds of races, isn't it? You know, you need to work together to make sure you both don't compromise each other too much in losing time.
Well, that's exactly it, and that is what it would appear is happening with these two. However, I'd argue that actually who's benefiting from all of this is actually Steven Martinez in the number 53 behind, because these two, it's smooth, it's controlled, it's precise, but it also looks like it's a little bit slow. Because they're actually getting caught up by several of the cars further behind them. The thing with it is we're already 12 laps into the race here, Chaz, and realistically, you know, our leaders are away about 7 seconds off into the distance from this group here. That all gets brought into absolute irrelevance if there's a safety car. You've got to say it's highly likely that there will be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those circuits that really demands it, as Emily Howe has actually moved to the front of the field here. She has got past Harry Wills. Look at the run Harry gets off there. Wonderful, wonderful run out of the final corner, though. Maybe Emily just scrubbing those front tyres a little bit too much. Harry goes down to the apron. Mark Redford goes with him. 3 Toyotas at the front of the pack as well, which is good to see. Again, look at the speed of them there. Emily going very high up around the outside of the circuit. And then back down again. It's 3 Toyotas in the top 3, then it's a Chevrolet and another Toyota, so there's 4 of them in the top 5. The first Ford is Lilac Zia, and she is fighting right now with Dean Timms for 6th position overall, a fellow Ford driver. Great battle between these front 3, though. I mean, I say front 3, Mark Redford's not too stuck into it yet, but, you know, he's still in the picture. I think Harry Wills' car looks fantastic as well. That number 95 machine, absolutely wonderful. And that's one of the best things, you know, here on the oval side of things, we more commonly use the whole hide car numbers option, which we get so drivers can use their customized numbers on the doors, and it's a fully custom livery, you know, no sort of stamped anything by iRacing other than maybe a name on the car windscreen. Although I must admit, I'm quite a fan of the fact that Harry and Emily right now are both running the old school numbers in the middle of the doors rather than right further forward. What's your opinion on all that debacle, David?
I think that's the only way you should be having the numbers. Anything else is just kind of plain wrong. It really is. I know there's moving with the times, but this is NASCAR. There's only so much progression you can actually make with a sport. Look, it's just iconic. It looks properly like it's NASCAR. That's what the identity is. I know obviously it's trying to change with the next gen cars that we've got out on display here, but that doesn't mean that you have to lose the visual cues, the visual identity of it. And yeah, I think they look proper. But with this being my first season here on with broadcasting, I didn't even, and having done road racing, I didn't even know about the hide car number option. And of course, having several competitors shouting at you about it not appearing, and I was like, what is it on the time tower? And then you realise why, because it completes the livery in a lot of cases. It just makes it look absolutely proper. And that's one thing we've got to talk about as well, is the liveries on display. I mean, I was looking at TJ Handley there, and his livery is absolutely just stunning. It looks like a proper NASCAR race car, actually, as Mark Radford makes the move just ahead of Emily Howe there. Gets that job done. So again, still nice and early, but the two of them fight, and that means that Harry Wills gets the stretch off. Also noticing Harry's the only car going right down on that apron. Yeah,
it's interesting that, because there's a bit of a sort of trade-off for having that shallower line, being further down the inside of the circuit, but the transition from being on the banking down onto that flat apron can cost you, and it can actually be risky, almost risky sometimes, to try and do that, because it can break away from you if you slap down onto that apron too hard. This is Lilac Zia in the very, very blue Ford Mustang. The number 89 car looking good indeed. Not quite as close to Dean Timms as she was a few laps ago. Her and Dean were swapping positions a number of times, and then all of a sudden that gap has opened up once again. So fingers crossed she can get back up there and fly the flag for Ford. Cass Silliman, we have seen Cass making some positions back up the order after the earlier off. into the pit lane, which was rather focusing, I can imagine, for Cass. But she's made a very, very quick recovery, and it's just a shame for her that the safety car didn't come out, actually, isn't it? Because that would have been the perfect scenario right there, as Redford seems a little bit slow off the final corner here. Emily Howe making a lot of progress, and speaking of progress, look right behind, we've got Casey Metzger there in the number 82 car, really closing in on these pair.
Yeah, isn't he just? He's really bringing that gap down. I'm seeing TJ Handley actually making a couple of moves as well. In fact, Justin Delano, what's happened down there, he's been falling down quite a bit there. But back with this battle, this is what I was worried about with Mark Redford and Emily Howe. The fact that they're fighting so hard. And I know it looks incredibly tame on the pictures, but the simple fact is they're not pushing together to catch up to Wills, and that's allowing Casey Metzger now to make this a 3-car battle. What I always worry about, Chaz, is that the more cars get involved in your fights, the more risk you're inviting in that, and the more chance that there is going to be a contact.
Yeah, you get more unpredictable variables, don't you, the more cars that are in there. Just depends on how people react to certain moves, how aggressive each driver is. You know, every time you add another variable into a race, especially a race that you're driving in rather than just watching like we are, it can be such a scary situation. So every single lap, every single corner is going to get more and more focus in, the more cars we have. The number 9 machine there of Matthew Plaisance is running the high line, trying to stay out of the way, and he's just put it in the wall, I think, there. As Emily Howe, she sort of had to compromise her line a little bit there to get underneath Matthew, because really, if she was going to stay at full chat round there and Matthew wasn't able to get out of the way and took the car further down the banking, then that could have been a big accident. Here's Stephen Martinez in the Vulture Motorsports blue machine. Or I have him as Vulture Motorsports blue on the timing anyway. But he is right with Eric Kulaga now, teammate at Vulture Motorsports. I commentated on the pair of them before in GT3 cars. It's quite the different scenario to see them here on the ovals, both running the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. In my opinion, the best looking of the 3 cars that are on offer in the next gen machines. But back to Mark Redford in second place, 1.3 seconds off the race leader right now. And to be fair, Harry Wills is doing an absolutely mega job. He did a 41.3 last time round, 41.5s and 41.8s for these guys. So it is certainly in Harry Wills' pocket right now. But the trade-off for that is going to be the tyre life. Is he going to just be overdoing it at this point with the tyres, David? I think maybe he could just push that front right a little bit too much.
This is exactly what we saw in the first race with the EU contingent. Certainly we saw the green flag pit stops around about laps sort of 32 to 34. And even then, I think some of the drivers decided to go in for fuel only, and then very quickly Chaz realised their mistake, because you get to about lap 40 and those tyres are just going to go no thank you. So if they can take anything from it, pit when they can, get the tyres in as well, and just enjoy that final stint.
Yeah, that's one of the best sort of strategy speculations you can make in this sort of racing, is the time saved by not taking tyres against the time that you actually gain on track by having fresh rubber underneath you. I used to broadcast another series using the Xfinity cars, and obviously they're a lot more slippery and slidey, and the difference the tyres made in that championship, you know, it really opened my eyes to some incredible strategy calls within this. And I know that people always do say, oh, they're just going around, literally round in circles. I mean, we've both heard people before slated motorsport, David, saying, oh, it's just watching cars go around in circles. This is literally watching cars go around in ovals, but there are so many fantastic, intriguing numbers and endurance factors to these races. That's what makes it exciting. You know, you see these drivers that absolutely pray for the day that they come into the pits as a scheduled stop and it's one lap before a yellow comes out, or a caution comes out, as they say. And that is an absolute goldmine as a driver, because you've got fresh rubber, you're fully fueled up, and then that puts you to the front of the field if you take the risk. Emily Howe's looking to go to the front of the race right now, though, starting to close in a bit there on Redford.
That was a bit sketchy, wasn't it? It was just getting a little bit too close for my liking between the two of them, but Redford saw that move, moved up and blocked any progress from Emily Howe trying to get past. That's brought Casey back into the mix as well here. But Harry Wills, I mean, he's just... It's so unusual to see him being able to clear off. We know he's fast, we know he's got the pace, but yeah, he'll be absolutely delighted. And of course, championship-wise, this is absolutely huge for him because, you know, Lilac Zier, she's away down in 7th place at the moment, and realistically, doesn't look like she's got the pace to make her way up through the field. Now, give us a safety car, that could all change very, very quickly, but realistically, we see TJ Handley into the pits as well with Rich Matthews. That's fairly early.
Yeah, it is actually. 2 cars in already. We'll be keeping our eyes on them and seeing whereabouts they come back out on track. I was just studying the championship standings actually. The top 3 in the championship are the only drivers to have won races so far. Lilac Zier won the first race of the season, and since then has been in and around that top 3, top 5. Harry Wills won round 3 of the championship, but Cass Silliman is the only driver to have won more than 1 race so far. She won rounds 2 and 4, but the other scores in rounds 1 and 3 weren't as impressive. So like you were saying before about that sort of consistency, that's where it comes in. Harry looking for his 2nd win of the season, and right now he's doing a good job at heading on his way to it. We're over a third of the way through this race already though, David. Time does fly when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It's a bit disappointing actually, given the history that the US contingent have for the love of yellow flags. I'm got no doubt that'll change very, very quickly, and I'll regret ever actually bringing that up. But yeah, look, they've done really, really well. They've proved that they can enjoy themselves, they can have battles, and they can do it cleanly as well. I mean, nearly lap 30. It's different because obviously it's a super speedway here. It's a nice big oval. They can really settle down, get the rhythm going, and I think that's what's so important. As you see, Emily Howe getting a little bit impatient there, getting straight past Redford, and this is now where the frustration I think is going to start coming out here, Chaz.
It is. Down the inside goes Emily, and ahead as now I think Emily's pitting. Emily is pitting. Down onto pit lane she goes. Casey Metzger as well. And Mark Redford continues on for another lap. It's great to see them adhering to that sort of fast lane in the pit lane as well. I really like that because a lot of the time in iRacing you get these drivers that just drive completely down where all the crews would be. You know, they'd just be ploughing through other pit crews if not. And I don't know, it just doesn't look as professional, you know, it doesn't look as polished. It's one of those things that sort of kills the immersion a bit, but it's fantastic to see them really adhering to that fast lane. They both pull into their respective pit boxes now, and it's only Casey and Emily that have actually come into the pits this time round. So a number of other drivers remaining out there. This is Harry Wills, though, your race leader across the tri-oval and across the stripe once more. He now has over 3 seconds from Mark Redford, and look at that, a lap over Emily Howe and Casey Metzger. That's part of the mental game, isn't it, in this sort of thing? When you see the leader is a lap ahead, you think, flipping heck, I've really got to gain some ground here.
I tell you what, if he gets a yellow flag right now, he will be absolutely laughing because obviously they've pitted under green flag conditions, and that will massively hinder them. But 30 laps in the book, like that's a really good effort for this US lot. And here comes Harry into the pit lane there. On about the fast lane for pitting and in general, it just makes it feel much more like it's an actual race. The problem is that you don't tend to get penalised if you don't do it. It's just a case of as long as you're in the pit lane, as long as you're under the speed limit, you're absolutely fine. But maybe who knows, Chaz, that'll be one of the various competition updates that they actually release here on iRacing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, some of the constant development on iRacing has been fantastic, especially in the last 2 years as well. I mean, the content that's been coming out has been amazing. The developments of things that we never thought we'd get has just been insane, as Mark Redford has a bit of a sketchy entry to the pit lane there. The back end wanting to step out, he straightens it up, keeps it off the apron, and then brings it back down. Dean Timms coming in just behind him as well from second place, and David preempting Stephen Martinez coming in. Very correctly done as well, sir. Lovely stuff. And Eric Kalaga comes in as well. Drew Neubauer is the next car behind them. I imagine he may also join them on pit road. John Casey is then the only other car that hasn't pitted. And Drew Neubauer actually carries on for Team Prema. He's going to go and do another lap. He's just crossed the line there. And now is absolutely flying around turns 1 and 2. Harry Wills just about to come around the final part of the circuit and cross the line. We're on board now with Drew Neubauer from Austin, Texas. And looks like Mark Redford, for the meantime, is ahead of Harry Wills. No, actually, it's just swapped around there. Obviously, Harry already up to speed. And here is Drew now slowing the car down. He's going to bring it in down on the apron, although it doesn't look like it wants to behave just yet. There you go. Gets underneath that white line. Slows it down nice and smoothly over to the right. And he will be one of the final cars to pit in this first stint. Harry Wills then. He is in front, but look at the gap back to Emily Howe. It has really come down. Emily really in this fight now. This is fantastic stuff to see. I did have a quick look at the width of this circuit. It's 75 feet wide, Auto Club Speedway. So you could just about go 2 wide, can't you?
Do you want to? Really? I don't trust myself going 1 wide, never mind anybody else. Goodness me. Listen, if you've got a driver that you trust and that you know that they're going to be able to look after themselves, absolutely. You can sort of trail them round, but when you're as a little bit green around the gills like I am when it comes to oval racing.
Oh, and me.
You kind of want to run for the hills, mate.
Oh yeah, mate, honestly, I think if we put the two of us together, we could somehow block the circuit here if we just had 2 cars between us.
Let's go street stocks, that's what I'm all about.
Oh yeah, that would be good fun. That would be good fun. Emily Howe has taken the lead though, lovely stuff. And Harry now, he's going to it's going to be an interesting mental state that Harry's going to be in now with this, because he'll have been thinking before, I'm in the red here, this is great. Sorry, I'm in the black here, because I always get that the wrong way around. Into the red is the bad one, into the black is the right one. He's going to be thinking, I'm in the black here, we're flying, I'm going to pit a little bit later, I'm going to come out in front, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, well, that orange car's gone past. And now, seeing that, he's going to think, well, maybe Emily has really ignited this battle more than I was expecting, and he's suddenly got to book his ideas up and crack on with this. But fantastic first stint completed there by Emily Howe to put herself at the front of the field. Importantly as well, behind them, Casey Metzger is third. He's ahead of Mark Redford now by about 3/4 of a second. Looks to me like Mark was actually in the pit lane for about half a second and a half, even less than the rest of them. So I'm not quite sure what he's had go on there. Maybe it must have been that moment on the way in.
Quite possibly. I'm just also noticing here with Emily Howe, she's actually the fastest driver on track right now. Best lap was a 40.80. In fact, immediately, just as soon as I checked that, I've immediately caught myself out, because it was actually now Mark Redford with a 40.68. So it's slightly faster, but again, just watching how wide Emily goes right up to the top there. The first sign of those tyres starting to go is going to be the rear tyres, if you start seeing them overcorrecting on corner entry and, more importantly, on corner exit, because as soon as you try and get the traction down, that's when the car starts going left, right and centre, and they're having to fight it. Thankfully, I think these two are going to avoid that, but what a race we've had so far. I mean, nearly 37 laps. In fact, we're on lap 37 in the books, and yeah, it's been a very, very clean affair, touching the desk here as I say those magic words. But looking throughout the field here, everybody's had a chance to get in amongst other drivers, and they've all done it very, very respectfully, as you said earlier, Chaz.
Yeah, it's been good to watch so far. It's been nice, clean fun, and that's exactly what we want when we go racing. It did look like there was a bit of smoke out of 3 and 4, though, on that previous lap. Emily and Harry both came down the circuit quite far compared to where we'd seen them before. They stay on that high line once again now. Harry starting to tuck right back in behind Emily's machine. On to lap 38 of the race we go. Looks like it wasn't that major of an incident, whatever happened to provide that smoke on the previous lap. Harry just gets his nose in front there, but what's the speed going to be like off the corner? Is Emily going to be able to hold on to it? Look, there you go. That's the difference, isn't it? As in the background, Metzger and Redford continue their battle, but it's the two Toyotas side by side at the front at the moment, and constantly swapping place time and time again on the timing tower, as Emily just uses that outside line for a little bit more pace off the corner. Harry then trying to shorten the line as much as possible. This is I mean, this is a very physical and very visual display of the sort of trade-off here, isn't it, David? With the shorter line being less distance but a slower speed, and the higher line being more distance but a higher speed. The way they cancel each other out is being perfectly demonstrated here.
Absolutely, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's almost like, you know, as you said, cancelling each other out. It makes you wonder, well, why is doing either or? Why not just sort of kind of meet in the middle? But something's got to give, and I think, quite honestly, it's going to be that outside line of Emily Howe, because it'll start turning into frustration. We've seen it so many times before where you're on the back of somebody like Harry Wills and you want to try and just make that position and make it happen, but you know you need to go down to that inside line to actually get that there. So yeah, I've got no idea how this is going to pan out, but I get the distinct impression this is going to be tears before bedtime here.
Yeah, it might be. We've got a car just in front as well. I think that's Matthew Plaisance in the number 9. No, it's not. I apologise. I think it's Brandon Mailing, the Canadian driver in the Eclipse machine. And no, it's not even him, actually. Sorry, it's Justin Delano. I apologise, David. That was completely on me, that one. I should really make sure I see my numbers before I call out names. Justin Delano, though, he's got a bit of damage on the right-hand side of that car. He's certainly made friends with the wall as this has gone on. Redford has got ahead of Metzger, by the way, and has cleared him by a couple of tenths now, but this battle continuing bit by bit, just trying to carve away at each other at the moment. As you were saying about those two different lines, David, you know, the inside line is usually the more favourable one wherever you are in the world in motorsport, because that is the line that basically controls how far down the track the pair of you are. You know, if Harry wanted to run the middle line, for example, and Emily was just up above on the high line, then she's limited in how far she could come down the track if she wanted to. You know, you can't just turn in on the other car. So to be in the box seat, you want to be the one on the inside line, and Harry made sure that he was that car there. Just in front of them on track now is Drew Neubauer, I believe, in the 47. He's going to be the next car for them to lap. Harry's going to use a bit of that slipstream to stay equal with Emily at best. Emily getting a double toe off both of these cars, though. And Drew puts the car in the middle of the road. So Harry, comfortable to go down low. Whoa, I say comfortable, though. That was far from comfortable. The back end steps out slightly. Gets a big wobble on, but again, you can save it, can't you, David, as Emily now has a go.
On Casey Metzger's crashed. Casey Metzger is fallen down the order there. He's got going again. But this is it. This is now exactly the point, Chaz, where we're starting to see these tyres starting to fail here.
Ouch, is all I'm going to say for what's left of Casey's car. Oh my Christ, that noise makes me jump. I've got it so loud. Oh, and it just breaks away again. That's just like what we said before, isn't it? It's got the grip, and then all of a sudden it's not. Oh, and he just slaps that barrier side on. He nearly got away with that there, didn't he? He nearly got away with that, but unfortunately for him, it was a bit of a clap in the side, to say the least, that one.
Love that word, clap.
Oh, it just does what it says on the tin, doesn't it?
He gave it a proper done, but right, Chaz, you're going to want to cover your ears for this one, but there we go.
So yeah, right. To explain to anybody that can't hear that, basically, that whooshing sound, if you do have it on, when we get a replay transition, because I usually broadcast whenever I do any events, so I've jumped in tonight and forgotten that I need to turn that down, and I can't now do that mid-broadcast. So whenever David does do a replay, if he wants to really torch me tonight, we'll have loads of replays, because it is definitely loud. Side by side right now, though, Emily Howe and Harry Wills, once again for this race lead.
I thought for a minute there, but then it was already past the pit entry point. I was just wondering if Harry was deciding to go in for tyres. I mean, the thing is that from what we saw again tonight, that pit stop on the early lap 30s, that's not going to be enough. They need to get in again for fuel, so don't be surprised. The thing is that if there is a yellow flag or a safety car or whatever, they'll all be in for fuel and for tyres, and that should be enough to see them through to the end, and there's no really reason not to at that point.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, you may as well just take the chance when you can to get that fresh rubber, get the car feeling as good as it is. But I mean, some of these drivers can be so stubborn that they just want to stay out there and just try and save any second they can. You know, they won't pit until they have to react to what their rivals are doing. But I guess at this point, you know, if we know there's going to be another stop, it's just going to be who takes tyres and who doesn't. Taking only 2 of them rather than 4 of them is going to maybe be a bit too risky around here. You know, with the amount of grip that you need from those outside tyres, you wouldn't want to upset the balance of the car too much. But look at that. Harry gets right up behind Emily, ducks down to the inside, uses that low line once again. Here we go, down towards the apron. Emily uses the speed on the outside to get in front. Harry uses the apron down the inside to get back in front. This is honestly a massive, massive game of yo-yo with 2 Toyota Camrys. This is fantastic stuff, but you can hear it. You can hear the tyres scrubbing away a little bit there, trying to break free. Harry's just making tiny adjustments on the wheel, a little bit of corrective oversteer there to the right-hand side. And that Camry right behind of Emily Howe looking very, very menacing right now. But this is great, great, clean fun from the pair of them. As we mentioned before, David, this is a very enjoyable fight to keep our eyes on.
They'll be absolutely loving it. And the reason that we went on board with Harry is to give you an example of just how much he's having to adjust the steering inputs on that and the throttle as well. That's the bit that you can hear. You can hear him having to lift off just to make sure that he can keep the traction on the tyres here. But you saw that huge overcorrection about 3 laps ago there. This is where it starts. It all goes downhill in the next 5 laps from here. So what you'll find them doing is easing off the pace a little bit. You can see that already. The pace has kind of dropped off by about 0.3 of a second compared to what it was about 10 laps ago, and that's just to try and help cool the tyres down a little bit and see what they can try and actually eke out of the tyres over the remaining 27 laps here.
Yeah, and that's the thing with iRacing. I mean, as of late, you know, it's been a little bit easier to manage the tyres. I mean, it's still not easy at all. I mean, the cars always feel like they're absolutely on the edge of just flinging you into a barrier, and the tyres can heat up very, very quickly here on iRacing, but it's keeping them in some sort of window as well. Inadvertently there, the number 63 machine of Errol Yuriksoy sort of helping out Harry Wills there. He stayed on his line. He didn't get in the way of Emily on purpose, but just the way that the 2 of them sort of fell into that situation there with Errol. Emily lost a little bit of time through the back straight, at least as Harry again steps the rear end out of that car. We've had an issue for Henry Wyndham a bit further down the order, unfortunately. He's been off the circuit and then gone back to the pits. I don't think he's had the best of nights, has he? We'll have a look and see what's what. Oh, Henry is already completely sideways and in the barrier, and then goes off the road and okay, that's far from ideal as well. That car has been on some sort of very wild ride to get to that point, unfortunately. As Emily back in front.
You hate to see it though, do you? It's just so awkward. Once these cars snap, that's it. You're kind of done for the day, and that's about the 5th time that I've seen that car in the pits there, Chaz.
Yeah, he's not had a good time, has he? I mean, yeah, it's actually showing us 6 pit counts now as well for him. So, yeah, it's been tough. He started from the pit lane as well. I think that might have counted towards one of them, hence why you're seeing 5. So, it's yeah, not been a good night for Henry, unfortunately, in that 28 car. But at the end of the day, you've got to give your hats. Well, or don't give your hat to him because he'll probably put it in a wall by the look of what we've seen. But he's you've got to sort of tip your hat to him at least, because he's still been determined enough to carry on and get back out there. We've got 25 to go as Casey Metzger leaves the pit lane. He's just taken fresh rubber as well, as we both very clearly saw there, David. The car smacking down onto the tarmac once again. They're very quick to introduce the rubber to its new road surface, aren't they?
It's fine, you know. Why waste time? Just get it straight out there. It's absolutely fine. But watching this battle, this is absolutely fascinating. And also, this is the first race this season I've watched that, you know, we went so long without having a caution. In fact, I believe EUs they were already under caution by this point. So yeah, fantastic stuff.
Yeah, really, really good to watch. And again, like you say, to have it go green for so long is really, really nice to have as Harry Wills. Oh, my life. Oh, Eric Killarger's just brought out the caution. We had to say it. You couldn't make it up.
I just, you know, it's fine.
You couldn't make it up.
Oh dear, look at the state of it.
He was already crashing when we said it, because, I mean, seeing from where the skid marks went to get him there, he must have literally, as we were saying about I can't believe that. That's typical. Here is what happened to Eric Kulaga. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's some sort of hardware failure there, because the wheels have suddenly locked left.
Oh no, listen,
and yeah,
hang on, if we go on board with him,
the throttle's open.
Oh no.
Ready?
And he disappears. Oh no,
yeah.
He comes back, the engine's gone. 9,500 RPM. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that's either the wheel or the pedals have disconnected there and it's just completely gone. Or he's actually had a complete PC crash and it's just remembered some ridiculously high inputs that he's had, and the throttle stays open.
Still going some. It's
yeah, I think
that. There you go.
to be fair, when you do have a major sort of malfunction of anything in iRacing, it often puts full brakes and full throttle on, and usually goes completely one way, either way with the steering, which is what it did there. So I reckon something is disconnected. His PC is either completely crashed, and the whole thing has just gone right. Max inputs, stuff it. Let's pull this car over.
Yeah, it's fine. You know, it's I usually use it to mask my absolute inferiority when it comes to sim racing as well. It's a handy one. If I end up in the wall, oh yeah, sorry guys, hardware failure.
Yeah, just pull the USB out on the spot. Whoops. Yeah, that horrendous noise. I've heard that noise way too many times when I used to have a bit of a dodgy extension cable that my PC was on. And it started surging a while ago, and I could not figure out for the life of me what it was. I was racing on another sim that I'm not going to mention the name of, and I was just, thinking, oh, I'll have a good fun night of racing here. I'd pull out the pit lane, and then you'd hear that, and then suddenly the wheel would go fully left, and then it'd do the dum-da-da-dum, and it'd reconnect, and then suddenly go fully right and throw me in a barrier.
The worst one is the Twitch streamers or YouTube streamers that allow you to play custom sounds, and you play that well. That is. Yeah,
why have I not thought of that? That's evil.
That is, yeah.
That is fully evil. I like that.
Let's get back to the action. Lilac Zier, out of absolutely nowhere now, granted still has to, still on the same pit strategy, up to P5.
Yeah, fantastic recovery there by Lilac. That's a really, really good job done, that, to be fair. Stephen Martinez has gained 7 places. Rich Matthews has gained 9 as well, so the drivers currently 5th, 6th and 7th in this race have all done a great job to get to where they are currently. And, give a fair shout out as well to John Casey. He's gained 6 positions from 15th on the grid to get up to 9th. And now we start to let these cars by to sort out this field. Emily Howe is ahead of Harry Wills on the road right now, but I believe Harry will be the first car behind the pace car, will he not? When we get going again, I think we're just going to start going too wide now and sorting the rabble out. As there is Lilac Zier down the inside. She's going to line up on the inside behind Mark Redford, with Stephen Martinez on her right-hand side. The other drivers that we've just been let past will be absolutely caning it now to try and get back round and catch up with this field. Off the restart, though, here, David, I reckon Mark Redford and Dean Timms could be 2 to watch, because they're going to have the slipstream from both cars in front of them, and having 2 twisted cars right up at the front might help Harry Wills.
I think you're spot on when saying that. They were right on the back, were Redford and Timms, but they were so caught up in battling themselves. In fact, actually, it wasn't Timms, was it? It was actually Casey Metzger who was up there in that 3rd position for quite a while there. So interesting to see what will happen here, but the lights on the pace car are off, and our first restart ready to go.
Well, let's hope that, as in a lot of motorsport, safety cars do not breed safety cars. Harry Wills, for the 2nd time tonight, is in control of the field on the inside line, and he's away. Great reaction by Emily Howe, it has to be said, but Mark Redford goes with the pair of them as well. He's going to tuck up behind fellow Camry driver Emily Howe, as the rest of the field keeps it nice and tidy as well. Solid restart from Harry Wills, though. Didn't quite catch everybody napping, but still did enough to extend that lead by just a few car lengths, and that was enough to keep the lead down the back straight. Beautiful sight as they come towards us. A car there in the background. I think Braden Mayling just going a little bit close to the wall on the outside out of 1 and 2. But beautiful shots as they come around 3 and 4. They all run up high on the exit. Fantastic sounds and sights from these cars.
It really is, though, isn't it? It's the noise and the vibration of them as they fly past the virtual cameras here. It's a sight to behold, and I don't know if you saw that there. That was a little wiggle there from Emily Howe there. Mark Redford is going to be wanting to jump all over that and try and take advantage of that, given the fact that Dean Tim's still in with a shout, but already the four of them are, what's that, about a second and a half ahead of everyone else.
Looked like Dean Tim's just caught the wall, though, out of 1 and 2. He's got a bit of damage on the right-hand side of the car now. It's certainly lost him a lot of momentum. But, yeah, Emily Howe had a big old wiggle there. And Mark Redford was actually sort of low down early on in the corner and let the car run up wide. And in doing so, nearly went into the back of Emily partway around the corner. We get nice and close to the wall once again with Dean Timms here looking back at Stephen Martinez and Lilac Zia getting very, very friendly through turns 1 and 2. Lilac keeping the bravery alive around the outside of the Vulture Motorsports car as Emily Howe has gone to the front now ahead of Harry Wills down the inside out of 1 and 2 onto the back straight, and by 3 and 4 she is in front. Now what can Mark Redford do here? He's got nearly a second back to Dean Timms. He's going to maybe be in the box seat here to try and use this double slipstream. I think a car has just gone into the wall. There is a car around and it's TJ Handley into the pits.
Cass Sullivan as well.
I was going to say, I think Cass was involved, and maybe John Casey. John Casey showed us off the circuit for just a moment there, and our second caution of the night has come out.
Well, you know what's going to be coming your way then, Chaz, don't you?
A big whooshing sound. Whoa, pace car getting a bit lively there, chucking it sideways in front of Emily. It was like an inadvertent brake check. Oh, wow, Cass has had her own moment there, and oh my lord, that's a massive hit from John Casey. The first one was TJ Handley. Not much that Cass can do, to be honest, but yeah, Cass had her own moment there into 3 and 4, and TJ just came barreling round as, okay, so Cass was just in front of Drew Neubauer, contact and then a little bit of an overcorrection, but again, these cars are so hard to save. Cass will feel very, very hard done by in that situation there, but I think Drew had the overlap the whole time. It's a hard one to call, though, at this sort of pace. And this was the 78 machine of John Casey, and there is the hit. That is a big old clout, that one, and it's amazing that car didn't spin, but John is hardly going to be loving the way that car is going to feel right now.
I don't know, it's looking remarkably well placed for what just happened to it. It just assaulted Cass Sullivan in midair, but yeah, that thing's looking actually not too bad. I don't know what to say about that. Obviously, one of the things that you get on online racing sims is something called netcode, where the server and the client can't agree on what actually happened, and it looks like, for the most part, that's what happened there, because for me, that car looks in way too pristine a condition if that actually went head on at about 80 miles an hour in another car there.
Oh yeah, it's only taken a little bit of a crumple at the front. It's like it's rested against like a small tyre barrier or something, just slightly on a damp day at Alton Park or something. But Emily Howe, fantastic race so far, and even Harry Wills behind the pace car has had the time to come into our Discord chat and say, well, this is some race. He's certainly enjoying himself out there, and it's been an epic battle between himself and Emily. Lilac Zia finds herself in 5th position as well. Redford and Tim still 3rd and 4th, as they were on the previous restart. But Harry, as we will both see, David, is still calling the fact that there might be more yellow flags after this. What do you reckon?
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute myself there.
That's all good.
Well, what I'm actually waiting to ask is we normally get a chance to have a chat on the voice with Harry, so we'll see if we can get a word with him on the next caution. That should answer your question as to what's going to happen there. Yeah, look, this is what we saw with EU. It's what we're going to see with this. The cars are bunched up together now, and this is now go time. 15 laps to go. The tyres are feeling a bit wobbly. The drivers are on really low fuel. The cars are light and floating about the track here. this is where you start to take chances, and more often than not, unfortunately, those chances can dry up before you even know it. And you know, from what we saw there from Cass Silliman, that was an accident that didn't really involve anybody else until about 3 different people drove straight into her.
And it looks actually like TJ Handley, who I'm pretty sure was the first car to make the contact there, has got away with that. But yeah, TJ has pitted again actually on lap 59. So yeah, it was TJ surely that's been in to repair that damage. Obviously used the fast repair and is back out now on the circuit and still in the fight as well inside the top 10. Pace car lights are out and it will very abruptly turn left in just a sec. There you go. No burnt Maylander, but still good driving by the pace car. For the first time tonight, though, Emily Howe is going to control the restart, and she does it beautifully. Mark Redford gets a really, really good restart as well. Tucks in behind, gets the slipstream on that lower line. That will now disappear as Emily goes up high against that outside wall. Harry Wills finds himself under attack from Mark Redford now. This is not the perfect scenario for Harry. Him and Emily have really been the front runners in this race, battling lap after lap after lap. And all of a sudden, Mark Redford has thrown himself right into the middle of this mix. Let's see what Mark's got in the tank in these last 14 laps. Lovely shot as they go round 3 and 4. Mark going a little bit higher just to use that slight slingshot back down the hill, but you can see it makes very little difference around here at Auto Club. 75-foot wide circuit, like I mentioned before. Incredibly wide track. Plenty of options available for every single corner, for every single driver. Lilac Zia moves up into 4th place ahead of Dean Timms. Biggest mover in the race so far is Rich Matthews in the TGR Nation car, a driver we've not really seen much of over the course of this, but it's been so good up the front, we can't take our eyes away from it. Harry Wills did get in front of Mark Redford for just a moment there, then lost it again, as here is Stephen Martinez very close together with Dean Timms. Stephen just breaks out of shape slightly. Great save though, lovely shot as well there, David, of the car just floating its way around 3 and 4, but them tyres are going to feel awful now for the next corner or so.
Yeah, I think he's not going to be enjoying this one, and you're going to see very, very quickly that he's going to be going backwards. TJ Handley's going to try and take that position. Almost contact there again, and yeah, this is starting to get a little bit sketchy, Chaz.
Oh, it's a bright yellow car, but he still couldn't miss it, could he? I suppose it's a bright pink car going into the back of it as well. That was very scary. I think there might have actually been the tiniest bit of contact, but they just got away with it there. And if not, I mean, it was pixels. It was mere pixels between the two of them. Very, very close. This is Rich Matthews, who's gained 9 spots in this race. I mean, he's been very under the radar, probably because we've not been sat here commentators cursing him, because that's what we're very, very good at here in this box. But Rich Matthews, 7th place after starting in 16th position, 3rd from last on the grid, that is. And he's got this man, Casey Metzger, just in front of him. Casey started 2nd on the very front row, and it's not quite worked out for him tonight. He's got Dean Timms and Lilac Zia fighting ahead. Harry Wills is then a further 2nd up the road, with Mark Redford and Emily Howe filling out those top 2 spots. Here is your race leader, Emily Howe. And Mark, again, using that higher line on the exit of the corner, but that's a sort of slight risk in itself of just clipping that wall. Lovely blimp shot here of the drivers making their way across the start-finish line to have 10 laps to go at Auto Club. Look at the way the cars, dance their way through 1 and 2. Mark is more than dancing. He's completely sideways. It's broken away. He's still got a wheel on the apron. That was the nightmare there, because that one wheel has bigger contact patch because of the camber on it. And how it leans down on that apron, it just dragged him in, didn't it, like a curb?
Yeah, it certainly did, and that's such an awful, awful moment to experience as a driver, because you saw it yourself there, Chaz. That accident or that moment went on for about 5-10 seconds, and just when you think you're out of it, you're still actually sliding around. And actually, we saw Harry Wills having a bit of a moment like that in the EU race earlier on, where he was just really struggling to get out of that accident waiting to happen. But yeah, good driving there, and great to see that Mark Redford's still going strong. I mean, 3rd place, 9 laps to go, decent position to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he started 4th on the grid, so he's been up there from the very, very start. And he'll be really, really pleased with that. Rich Matthews has made his way to 5th place now and has gained 11 spots. He's having an absolute flyer. Martinez and Handley, who we both see here right together, have both gained 7 spots each. They've come up through the order from 13th and 14th on the grid together. And now they continue to fight. The THR car having a go at the Vulture Motorsports machine, the big bright yellow number 53 on your left-hand side. TJ tries to carry the speed around the outside. Big, bold number 3 on that car. I do love the livery. Reminds me of some of the Arnage competition colours. And look at that, he's made it work on that high line as well, with not too much of a fight from Stephen, but Stephen looked to me like he was just making sure that he didn't run wide up into him. You know, it was nice, respectful stuff. And despite the couple of cautions we've had, it has been a really, really nice race for some of these guys, hasn't it? They've been playing the game very safely.
They absolutely have. And the thing is, as well, with 7 laps to go, as you were saying there, Chaz, there becomes a point for these drivers where you have to switch into protection mode. You have to think, right, I've got a top 10 place or I've got a top 5 place. That's what I want. Focus more on that rather than trying to get this one position from the car that's right behind me. So, you know, I don't think TJ Handley is going to be too fussed whether he finishes in 6th or 7th position, but realistically with 7 laps to go here, that's probably, and TJ clipping the wall on the outside there. That's a very unusual mistake.
Yeah, there's a little bit of the wall just where it becomes the sort of second part of that barrier as he clips it again on the exit. The wall just sort of suddenly come out there from having a perfect straight on the back straight to obviously the safer barrier as it is that sort of pokes out as the corner sort of builds itself. You know, these walls can't be made like a millimetre thin, you know, it's quite a chunk as it suddenly appears, and he's just caught the end of it there. You'll see it again now as we go on the front left corner of the car. Look, it just suddenly pokes out a little bit like a wedge just there where the white line starts, and that white line really shows the drivers where that wall is so they know exactly how to clear it. But unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit more than that, maybe a written letter or something for TJ Handley to not hit that. But still, Stephen Martinez pokes his nose back in front there, side by side once again. And still so close. 5 laps to go at Auto Club. It's incredible how quickly that's gone by. We're in the 71st lap of this race. It's Emily Howe, Harry Wills, Mark Redford, Lilac Zia and Rich Matthews, the top 5. And behind them, we have this epic battle between Martinez and Handley.
I was the way to say it's going to take a restraining order, I think, against Handley for him not to touch that out of the wall on the corner there. But this is the thing that's really making me very curious, because obviously we're watching this battle here, but Harry Wills is bringing that gap down very, very gently, about 0.2 of a second every single lap here. 4 laps to go. He is still on for taking the race win here.
It's looking very progressive from Harry Wills. He was another 10th quicker on that previous lap, so he's going well. He's using that slipstream. Redford's dropped away a little bit, unfortunately. Lilac Zia doing some fantastic damage limitation. As you said at the top of the broadcast, David, she usually starts midfield and then makes her way forward. She's done that in this race again as well. And Casey Metzger is now behind Stephen Martinez, so Stephen gains another... Actually, sorry, it's Casey getting ahead of TJ. I was going to say TJ has dropped off because that damage from that front right is clearly hurting that front right tyre. 3 to go. Harry Wills really closing in. The gap is now less than 0.3 of a second. And look at the amount of time that he gains down the inside there. But Emily's going to get it back on the high line. I think, though, with Harry being in the slipstream, he's the one in the box seat now because he's got that lower line, which we know he loves to use. And then down the straight, any sort of extra speed that Emily has from running the high line is negated by the slipstream itself, isn't it? And look, Emily responds, look, goes low.
Exactly. I think that's because of the car up the top there. The
probably.
Number 78 of Casey. But the thing is, as well, is the fact that it's going to be one thing catching up to Emily Howe, but Harry Wills is going to have a big fight on his hands if he's going to try and get down and to get ahead. But, well, he's going for it, and yeah, this is starting to get a bit scary. 2 laps to go. We're going to have 1 lap to go, and we've got about 0.1 of a second.
Yeah, Emily doesn't seem too phased at this point. I mean, she's still running the high line through turns 1 and 2, but then I think she's going to continue to run the low line in 3 and 4 just to make sure that Harry doesn't get that advantage there, because that's where the run is more important obviously off that final corner and across the line. One more lap to go at Auto Club, and it is Emily Howe leading Harry Wills for the race win here. White flag is in the air, and it is the Twisted Racing driver chasing down that beautiful orange number 83 of Emily Howe. Harry tries to take it low. Emily's not as high up as she was before. That middle line isn't as comfortable for her by the look of it. Harry's car slightly sideways. Looked like it was floating just a little bit. They're very, very close. He tries to use the side draft down the back straight. He's going to have the lower line and the faster line down the inside. Surely into 3 and 4. Is Harry Wills going to steal this away from Emily right at the death? Emily's going to get a good cutback, though. Out of 3 and 4 they go. Emily's got the traction. She's got the drive. Harry Wills is sideways. Emily's down the inside. And is she going to take it? No. Or is she? No, I don't even know. It's a mere thousandth of a second, and Emily Howe gets the win. Fantastic. Oh, amazing.
How? What a win. That was epic. That is one of the best finishes we have had this season. In fact, I think that I've ever seen in NASCAR. That was epic.
You could ask her, how did you do that?
Well, you'll be asking her how she did that, because I'm not fancying getting slapped. But wow, that was amazing. And look, for how rough this season has been for the US contingent, that is hands down the cleanest race they have had this season, and I expect this every darn week from them. That was amazing.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. I can tell you that according to the sim itself, the gap was 7 thousandths of a second at the line in the favour of Emily Howe. And I mean, even though Harry finished second in that one, he will absolutely be beaming from one side of his face to the other. He'll be over the moon with that. You know, he'll have a massive smile on his face, and he's going to join Emily and also Lilac as well for some celebratory donuts, because, like you said, David, compared to previous rounds where it may have got a little bit rough and tumble and a little bit argy-bargy, that was a really, really clean race, that one. I enjoyed that a lot. It's been fantastic to jump in for it.
It was an absolute pleasure having you on board, Chaz. And the thing is that you're spot on with what you're saying. Even for someone like myself, and you know, I'm not the worst sim racer, but I'm nowhere near the aliens and the esports drivers. But even myself, when you get a race and you're really, really, you know, hammering it out with someone, and you're going maybe lap after lap after lap, going toe to toe with someone, when you cross that line, you feel like you've achieved something, and that's exactly how I can imagine Emily Howe and Harry Wills are going to feel after that one. But I mean, after all that as well, you know, Mark Redford in that 3rd place as well, and Lilac's there. That is a big result for her to get in that 4th place.
Yeah, like I said before, it's damage limitation at this point, isn't it, really, for Lilac there? Because we saw that she started a lot further down in the order, down in 11th position, and to have your championship rivals starting at the very, very front, it's not the best scenario to be in when you're starting a race, because you feel like you're on the back foot straight away, and to be in a race like that and feel like you constantly have to make up for something as the race goes on, it can be a real tough challenge mentally, and to overcome that and then take the win is absolutely phenomenal. Really good stuff. We will have a chat with Emily in just a moment and get her thoughts on that race, because I mean, it was an epic battle all the way through, and we certainly enjoyed watching every moment of it. And Emily joins us in the box now. Emily, you must be absolutely over the moon with that one. To take it by 7 thousandths of a second as well, that's pretty incredible to just get that splitter across the line in front. How do you feel?
That was incredible. You know, I spent the whole race kind of behind the 8 ball. I missed the setup a little bit, just that little bit, to where Harry just had such better long run pace, and I was just trying to hang on. And I kind of got about 8/10 gap on him during that last run when he was fighting with Mark back there. But about every lap, the last 10 laps, he was closing at a 10th, and he got to me right on the last lap. I knew if he got to the inside of me, I was probably in trouble. And I missed turn 1, and then when he got to the inside of me, I thought, okay, well, in 3, I'm just gonna have to send it and hope it sticks. And I did a little bit of magic pedal work and got the car to rotate on the brakes, and he overdrove the corner just a little bit. And I knew if I could just get that under him, I could get him to the line. And it was so close.
It was incredibly close. I mean, on our timing, obviously, it only goes to 2 decimal places on the broadcast, but we had to actually check in the sim to see what the gap was, and we registered it at 7 thousandths of a second in the end. And I always say in motorsport, when it comes to qualifying or a race result, it doesn't matter how much you beat them by. If you've beaten them, you've beaten them. And you did that exactly tonight, Emily. It was fantastic to watch. But talk us through that middle part of the race, because Harry seemed to break away very early on. But then after the first pit stops, you seem to have it in your grasp again. What do you think that you had as an advantage at that point of the race? Because Harry's advantage just disappeared.
Well, I worked on the car every single stop. I kept basically pulling the rear of the car further down to get that diffuser sealed and try to get the downforce balance shifting backwards. I was fighting a loose car long run. So that first run, it kind of gave up on me. Then the second run, it was a little bit better. And then once that caution came out, I think I doubted it was about as good as it's going to get with this car, but it's just, I missed it by a little bit, and he just had the better car overall. And so it was basically a fight between him having better tires and me trying to just wrangle the car to keep up with him for most of the race.
Well, it certainly worked out in the end, and I did tell David that I was going to ask you, how did you do that, as a bit of a terrible British pun, but it was still very, very entertaining. Now, of course, the championship moves on, as it always will do. These circuses never stop. We go to Pocono in a week's time. How do you feel about going there?
A little bit nervous, honestly, because these flat tracks are really starting to elude me. The mile and a half tracks, I think we've got pretty down packed. The speedways, we've got rocket ships there, and the road courses I'm not afraid of. But these flat 2 mile tracks or tracks like Pocono, I really don't have a handle on it. It seems like Harry really does. So very similar to Auto Club. So hopefully I can figure it out by next week. But if not, it'll be the same sort of race again here, which would be great for y'all. But I would love to just go out there and just walk away with it. But doesn't seem like that's gonna be the case.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Emily. It's going to be entertaining either way, I'm sure, at the what I call the awful triangle at Pocono. But I'll certainly keep my eye on it, even if I'm not in the commentary booth. Is there anybody that you'd like to give a quick shout out to while we've got you?
Yeah, just love to thank the team, Prismatic Motorsports, and all the dolls back at the shop, and everyone who comes out and supports us, and all the drivers, Lilac, Cass, and then Katie, who hasn't been able to race the last couple of weeks, and Judith. Big group, lots of fun, lots of support. So gotta thank everyone there.
Lovely stuff. Well, great to speak to you, Emily. Well done tonight on the win. It was an absolute joy to watch it, and we look forward to seeing you next time out at Pocono.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Cracking stuff. Emily Howe taking a very, very well-deserved win after a long, hard fight throughout that one. And the driver that she was fighting with throughout that race is, of course, the number 95. The boss man, Harry Wills, joins us in the box. Harry, you must be a little bit gutted that the win slipped away by that amount, but at the end of the day, what a fantastic race.
That was hands down one of the best races I've ever had the pleasure of taking part in. It's just to go that continuous lap after lap after lap, knowing there was cutbacks, you could slide up, and it was competitive, but there was just enough respect given on both where the room was left if needed to be. It was an absolute privilege to do that, and I'm absolutely gutted, Chaz. Yeah, no, I'm all right. It's all right. It was phenomenal. Yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better race. Yellow flags are part of racing. If you've got 15 or something in a 100 lap race, then we've got a bit of an issue with that. But it adds something to it. And when you get 2 or 3 or maybe 4 in like a 75-100 lap race, that's just the perfect number. And we had a good run of green flag, a green flag pit stop, and then a couple of splatterings of yellows at the end, and it just made for an absolutely fantastic race, I think.
And I mean, to be fair, with these sorts of races, within the whole sort of NASCAR scene, these races are usually even a lot longer than this. But even still here with 75 laps around Auto Club, there were still 2 pit stops in that. So there's a lot of options for you guys when it comes to how you're going to approach these pit stops and your strategies, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, in my EU race earlier on, I caught the fence early on in the race, and I took the shortest stop towards the start of the race, and then I able to get a second in that as well. So, it's there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of things like that, but ultimately, I think the key thing where oval racing has something maybe a little bit more over road races, is just how much you do have to protect your tyres.
Yeah.
And just, if you cook them too soon, the drop off at the end can be absolutely astronomical, where someone that protects the tyres is the difference in driver more than outright pace, I think.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was touching on during the race, is the fact that there is an endurance element to stuff like this. It's fantastic to watch, and I mean, it's a testament to the series. The race length is spot on. It still gives that strategy call a bit of a sort of shine in the light, and well, the racing is just mega because people have got a little bit less time to do stuff. Very quickly though, 75 laps here, but 75 laps next time out at Pocono. Are you excited for that one?
Yeah, I think that'll be a slightly harder thing to sort of get on with. I think this was always had the potential to bring a good racing. Pocono again has the potential, but it's going to be very, very difficult. It's there's one more corner to deal with, which hopefully people have the ability to handle that thing. But they're three very, very different corners. It's not like you've got two corners which are the same, which obviously on an oval, relatively speaking, you've got three completely different corners to deal with, and yeah, I'm absolutely blown away that was able to go that length of time and run that hard. That was not, I don't know about Emily, I'm sure she was there, just chilling out and doing what she was doing. But I was elbows out for 75 laps straight, and I wasn't prepared for that at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that was absolutely phenomenal. Real privilege to do it. Congratulations to her on a win. 7 thousandths of a second. So yeah, just if it hadn't have got loose out of 4, it just kicked a couple of times. And if I hadn't have had that, I think I'd have had it, but just got a better run out of it. But yeah, oh well. But, as always, you do an absolutely fantastic job. It was a fantastic evening, and yeah. God, I don't know what to do with myself now. I don't even want to sleep, that's for sure. I'll be staring at the ceiling for the next couple of hours, I think.
You'll be staring at the ceiling thinking, if only it hadn't kicked out at 2 4.
If only it had just stayed, did what it was meant to do and not just wiggle around, then I'd have had it. But I've got to say, it's cool to if you have a good race, you don't mind finishing 2nd or 5th or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was fantastic. So.
Lovely stuff. Well, it was great to watch, Harry. Thanks once again for joining us, mate. And hopefully we'll see you on the top step at Pocono. Just that 7 thousandths difference, eh?
Yeah, exactly. God, yeah. Fantastic. As always, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Harry. See you soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
Lovely stuff. I had to poke the fire a little bit there, David. It's a bit of fun with Harry. He's a fantastic
It wouldn't
bloke.
be the same otherwise, would it? He's staff,
Exactly.
so we're technically allowed to.
Yeah, we're basically brought
It's
here
a public
to just
service.
Exactly, mate. We come here to just take the mick out of him. That's why we come here. But no, it was an amazing drive, to be fair, by Harry all the way through that one. And next up, in terms of our interviews, we move on to the man that had the box seat for the whole thing. He had the front row seat for that Titanic battle. Even got in amongst it as well himself during that race. Mark, we had a quick chat earlier. I said we'd catch up soon. I didn't think it'd be this soon. No offense, obviously. I didn't know you were even running in the American race. How was that from your perspective?
I just wish I was closer to see it in a bit more detail, because I was a few seconds back. I went too deep into turn 1 and lifted off a bit too suddenly and lost the rear of the car. Yeah, it was quite hairy. Managed to gather it up without spearing into the side of Harry. And yeah, just dropped back from there. I couldn't stay with him. Harry and Emily, they were the class of the field tonight. I couldn't stay with them, really.
They had an amazing battle out of it as well. But I mean, you showed the pace that I've seen out of you a number of times as well. You've got that sort of level-headedness to just stick in a battle and not overstep your mark. There's a number of things to be said about patience in a race like this, because you do get those drivers, don't you, that just lob it down the inside at every opportunity. But you need to have that sort of big picture in mind, don't you, at places like this?
Yeah, especially on the big tracks like this one. It's look after the tyres and try and be there at the end. Unfortunately, I didn't do that last week at Richmond. I caused 2 cautions and left the race because I was so embarrassed. But yeah, I enjoyed that tonight. 2 good races for me.
Well, that's it. And, it's strong points for the championship as well. And speaking of the championship, it's still not a done thing yet for a lot of you guys up front. It's so close between a bunch of you as well. You never know how it could go. Is Pocono looking like a good race meeting on the horizon for you?
I usually like it there, so hopefully I would like it there in this car. I've not driven it in this car yet, so we'll see how it behaves.
Well, I suppose there's only one way to find out, mate. But either way, we look forward to it here. And of course, I'm sure the people watching will as well. Is there anybody that you'd like to give a quick thanks to while we've got you?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Harry and Emily, who raced brilliantly tonight. Big shout to them. To yourself, Jazz, and is it David for doing the cameras and stuff and the brilliant coverage that you guys do. And I want to give a big shout to Will, the real world racer, will probably laugh at me, and his brother Luke as well, who watches some of the races.
Cracking stuff. Well, great to speak to you as ever, Mark. I told you we'd catch up. Like I say, here we go. But it's still a fantastic result either way, no matter how you look at it. And we hope it goes well for you at Pocono. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Jazz.
Cheers. Great stuff. And as I mentioned before, a good friend of mine is Mark, and his son Will Redford racing in Civic Cup this year. It's very, very exciting. He got into Junior Saloon Car Championship last year. Did really, really well in that. I think it was Westbourne Motorsport that he was racing with. And all of a sudden, he's in Civic Cup, and it's great to see. But there are your updated championship standings. And can you believe it? Lilac Zia, only 2 points clear of Harry Wills. But you've got to think, if she was 1 or 2 positions further back, Harry would definitely be top of the pile. Justin Delano, after a very under-the-radar performance tonight, is third on 164 points, ahead of Dean Timms, and Cass Silliman finds herself in fifth. And, I mean, you can see for yourself just how close it is still between the rest of them further down. Mark Redford in 10th now, tied with Eric Kulaga. But what a fantastic race we've had tonight, David. That finish alone was brilliant, but the ongoing battle throughout the whole thing was just so entertaining to watch, wasn't it?
It was absolutely fantastic. I loved every single moment of it. And the great thing about it is, championship-wise, you look all the way down to 10th position with, 3 rounds left to go. It's still way too wide open. It's like you cannot call it in any way whatsoever right now.
Well, put it this way. I mean, you get 40 points for a win. If Mark Redford was to get 40 points, he'd go top of the championship by 10 points. So it's just absolutely anybody's. And I'm certainly going to be keeping my eye on it very, very closely for the rest of the season. But any final words from you, David, before we wrap it up?
Bedtime. That's
it
about it.
Yeah, it's 3:20 in the UK right now, in the morning, that is. But honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure again, David. Thank you very much for having me, mate. Wonderful job.
A huge thank you, Chaz, for stepping in as the super sub. For those who watch us on the other weeks, Kenny Kibbe a little bit unwell tonight, so obviously we send out our best wishes to Kenny and a speedy recovery, and hope you enjoyed the night off. But Chaz, absolute pleasure and absolute privilege as always having you on board.
And to you too, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure here in the SIM3D WSL NASCAR US Series. We hope you had a good night of it. Or I should say it in English. We hope you've had a good night of it. Thank you for joining myself, Chaz Draycott, and the wonderful David Christie, as ever. We will see you again in a week's time at Pocono. But for now, it's goodbye.